Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a scholar and a very senior professional from the world of academia, Professor Asha Bhandarker. Asha, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ashutosh, thank you so much. I feel privileged, especially knowing that you have such a wide listening audience. It's fantastic. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Professor Bhandarkar is the former professor and dean of MDI Gurgaon and IMI Delhi. She's a well-known scholar and speaker in the field of HR and leadership studies in India. She's an author of 10 books, and given the amazing work she's been recognized, awarded, and felicitated several times. So, Asha, let me start with my first question. Please tell me a little bit about your journey into the field of HR and leadership studies and what motivated you to pursue this path.
Right. I come from a subject of psychology. And my dad, who's a banker and a very practical man, he said, you do pol science and economics and all that. So I did. And after he said, try it. I tried for a month. I said, no, I want psychology, sociology, and other interesting stuff because I have a lot of curiosity from a very young age about human nature, human beings, and all, especially about complexities, And we are a large family by standards of that time. We are four siblings. Then it was a joint family, and yet each one is so different and stuff. So that's how my entry into psychology happened, and that was so fascinating for me. Undergrad was psychology, and then as a postgrad, it's going to be psychology. My dad said again, he said, no counseling, no abnormal psychology, you're going to do industrial psychology. Then I got, gently nudged into this direction.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was reading stuff by, I don't know, at that time, there was this very famous author called Irving Stone to write a biography. And I was privileged the biographies of Freud, Vincent van Gogh, what's his name? The Renaissance guy from Italy, that guy. So, I mean, the complexity and depth of character which was put out, was so exciting.
Yeah.
And that's how I moved in this direction. And then I started for my PhD. I told you about my dad. Then I'll tell you about my mentor. My mentor was already, that is Dr. was already in well-known for his work on leadership. And when I got into the leadership domain, my niche was bringing psychology into it, adding a bit.
Yeah.
So he valued me for that. And that's how the journey happened. And I must tell you that very early in life, thanks to my association with Dr. Peoples, in terms of training also, a lot of training, a lot of consulting together in remote places, like Pura Dungri used to be a stop we used to take. Go by train from Hyderabad. Those days I was associated with Dasky and other places here. We used to go to Western Coalfields. Or we used to go to NTPC in Purba. All remote places. But even in those remote places, the quality of leadership that I would see. Because they were what you would call completely the large family. And I used to so thoroughly enjoy, interacting with them, working with them. And then again, my curiosity. So then researching in this domain became a natural outcome.
Fascinating. And given the vast experience you have, I'd love to understand from you how the HR function and practices have evolved. Because I remember when I started my career in 1979, there used to be a personnel manager, an industrial relations manager, and then that has evolved into a CHRO, which is now in the C-suite. So I'd love to get your perspective.
Yeah, one has seen the evolution, obviously. And as you said, in the late 70s, early 80s, the component of admin was very high.
Correct.
And I'm not lying if I tell you that in remote parts of large companies, large banks, I actually did a consulting. I don't want to leave the public sector bank where I was consulting for even as late as 7 years. And, they went with the fad and fashion and brought in young MBAs, no doubt from tier 2, tier 3.
Yeah.
And their biggest pain point was that we are not given any work. We are only asked to stand and serve when we empty. So, I mean, this is only to tell you that there is a lot of primitive approach to managing human beings, which still exists in some remote parts of the country. Having said that, we have the full range. We move from personnel, admin to personnel to HR, and in HR today, in fact, you see the quality of practice, etc. Like when you talk of competency mapping or when you talk about leadership development and all, it's the other extreme where the human being is given the highest value.
Correct.
And not for any wrong reason. A human being is given value not because it's a goody goody thing to do. It's because they are the talent. They are the oil for your company, and they are the one who are going to take implement the dreams that you have for growth of your.
Correct. Correct. Well said. Well said. And given the amount of changes that have happened, you must have seen a lot of young HR professionals who you either worked with or trained or taught. What are some of the challenges being faced by HR professionals in our country today?
Okay, and I have a good view about this and a bad view about this. And I would like to start from the individual level because I started the HR program in Gurgaon. I was the founding chair of that program. So started it from scratch. Many of them have gone on to become very senior leaders in the industry today. So if I see the type of people who come into big management schools, there are two kinds. One is they are very elitist. That's a smaller percentage, thank God. And then there is this tier two that comes in with that fire in the belly and everything. And I think they are the future for this country. And I want to say that because of their upbringing in terms of coping with hardships, coping with the challenges of daily life in an average part of India, where elitism is only heard of or seen in some movie somewhere like Bollywood. These are the people who are hardy. These are the people who are resilient. These are the people who are not aspiring to be sitting in an AC room. And these are the guys who are going to make it great. They are able to tolerate all the difficulty. And I contrast that with the typical urban elite.
Correct.
Have the English language background and have the everything. They also want a great career. Of course, half of them would have already gone to the US. The rest of them are available here. They are the ones who have them. And what is the problem? The problem is of coping with diversity.
Right.
And what else can I say? If I look at it from, this is what I said from an individual perspective. Now, if I try to look at it from the perspective of the role as HR, now everybody suddenly is facing a problem because one, there is still not enough credibility in HR function. Despite anything you say, despite all the words which come out from the mouth of the CEO when he makes an annual statement or something, studies have shown that they are not really convinced about the importance of it. And this is a large mass of Indians. I'm certainly not talking about the best who are at the other end, of the country. Yeah. So this is one challenge. And I have seen this challenge, it has been improving now. Because there was a time and there still continues to be a time when HR still views themselves in silos. HR has to be a business leader and a tech leader. They need to have that breadth of capability for HR, business, and tech. Correct. If they do that, then they are able to impress the business leaders. They can impress the business leaders.
Well said. Great response. And you mentioned that some of these individuals may have a problem with diversity. I'd love to get your perspective on how can the HR function help in handling diversity and inclusion in a lot of our companies?
Right. There are two levels to it because HR is the implementer and the holder of the culture and values of the top team. And number one, the signaling from the top team and from the top leadership on which side they are regarding diversity. And of course, here I understand that you're talking generally about gender diversity. When I use the term diversity, I was talking much broader spectrum, all kinds of diversity, including economic diversity, language diversity. Coming back to your question, I think HR function has to support and realize the vision by coming up with the right kind of practices. And we're a land of tremendous competition. There's scarce resources, and invariably it happens that guy gets it and not the girl. And the excuse given is merit, which I have serious questions about, because there is tangible aspect to merit and intangible aspect.
Absolutely.
And if you take the whole thing together, I'm sure women can be equal, if not better. So, first of all, it is an attitude thing, which needs to be handled. And the second is modeling. What modeling? I mean, nobody is saying diversity as charity. Never be done as charity. Should be done with men. Now, I don't know if this is very relevant, but small example of a creative solution at some of the management schools done. Because invariably, if it is engineering and how it is even because of that being the qualifying examination, the filtration happens in such a way that the engineering graduates will make it the top list. So we devised a mechanism by which you give 1 mark more to groups, just one, on diversity. That has resulted in getting larger numbers of women. In fact, to the extent of 30% of women, the classroom. It's not just one or two schools, many schools. And this was a very simple example. Say that they are all in the merit barrier, bracket. But how are you going to do a little bit of social engineering to ensure that diversity comes into place? And there's a regular reason for it. And the reason is that if 50% of the planet is inhabited with female of the species, they're boys. They should be there everywhere.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. At least in my
That's my take.
Yeah. And that's very well said. Now, she also spoke a little bit about the role of the CHRO and how they must understand, they must be business leaders, but you also mentioned that they must have an understanding of technology.
Right.
And my next question is on technology, because technology is beginning to impact the HR function very significantly, including artificial intelligence, which is doing forecasting with the kind of skills, etc. I'd love your perspective on how is technology changing human resources.
Of course, even in our programs in IMI and MBI, we have brought in data analytics, some compulsory part of the program. That's a salute to the importance, which is coming in. Something like machine learning, I see as a great creative.
Correct.
Because large companies are simply unable to handle the vast volume, massive volumes of any efficient. Learning is going to be one of the greatest support systems. And of course, chatbots and stuff like that, that's fine. And one has experienced the limitations of it. If, for example, I mean, any site today, you have a chatbot and they are mind numb. What I mean is a limit. But if AR, VR technology can be deployed, learning and development, I think that's going to be a need. We also know the constraints of you need large investment. There we are.
Very interesting. I want to now talk a little bit about culture. And, my understanding of culture has always been this is the way things happen here. I'm sure, and you also mentioned HR leaders are the place which is the repository of culture. How can organizations foster a culture of continuous learning and development in their own organizations?
And so you rightly put it that it's about the way we do things here, and that's um, coming from the values held by the company, by the top leadership. And in entrepreneurial firms, obviously, the entrepreneur becomes the holder and values, whereas HR becomes the disseminator. And you're specifically talking about learning and development. I guess the process is the same.
Mhm.
Process being enunciation of the values and reinforcement of the behaviors. I say behaviors. Those who are getting into regular learning, upskilling, upgrading of themselves. What do you do with them as a company?
Mhm.
How are you, reinforcing that behavior? Because culture is also about shaping behaviors, large masses of people.
Correct.
So if you want your people to be more agile in terms of learning, then you should be giving it importance. You should be giving importance in the sense of recognizing it in some way, incentivizing it in some way, also providing support. Because one disturbing trend that I see in HR, especially from times, is the rash of online universities.
Mm.
Everyone says they have an online,
Mm.
and I mean, it is quite horrible. I was on the board of a bank, and discussions used to be about the right. Oh, they have to, for example, let's say on POT, they have to clear an exam.
Mm.
What happens? Yeah, it's there online. There. Then what happens? If you clear it, you get X points of it. Don't clear it. Question is your training and development is for what?
Mm.
Purpose is to bring behavior change,
Correct.
or purpose is to pass an exam. That is the distressing part. That this online thing is being just a ritual
Mm.
to show that we are doing this. To
Correct.
show it in our books that okay, just to count. You tick mark the box that yeah, many people have done this without. I don't think they are bothered about impact. I don't think they're bothered about change.
Mm.
That's a concern about L&D. Uh, there should be a hybrid model of learning.
Correct.
There should be a proper connection between what you learn and it's and somewhere there should be some dipstick to identify whether these exams are actually scores on exams are actually translating into the desired behaviors.
Mm.
But I believe it's possible. There is better role modeling by top teams, better role modeling by heads of departments, and also incentivization, as I said. The two.
Mm. Great response. The other aspect I wanted to talk to you about was women. And we did speak about 50% of the world being women. And I wanted to get your thoughts because I've often said with all the women colleagues I have had that women have a much stronger work culture wherever I have worked. I want to get your perspective on the role of women in leadership positions and how is inclusion happening? Because one of the things I've often asked many women in leadership roles is that you've got a seat on the board, but is your voice heard? And the answer is generally no.
Yeah, it's quite a vexed thing. I see that because you're asking about number of people on boards, women on boards, number of people in senior leadership positions. I understand that I was just checking some data for preparing for this. 2013, we had only 6% women on boards of company.
Mm.
And 2023, after the SEBI mandate that there should be, X percentage of women, increased to 23. So that means there is an improvement. But having said that, women have to become the champions, no doubt about it.
Correct.
Women have to become the spokespersons for other women. And I think it is women in senior leadership positions can do it.
Hmm.
As a board member, I have experienced what power I had as
Right.
one leader. First of all, if you look at the, I don't know, discussion may go off into, I'm trying to be very conscious of that. Because otherwise that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll get into that, but except to say that, okay, people hear you on boards. That has nothing to do with gender.
Hmm.
It's about the agenda of the MD.
Correct.
So, gender-wise, I mean, because see, the focus of boards is board to perform. Only if board level, woman level issues come to the board level, then there is a scope for you to voice your view.
Hmm.
But otherwise, I don't think just by being one woman being on the board is going to be better.
Hmm.
That's my experience.
Well said. Well said.
And not because I'm a silent person, by any chance.
Hmm.
I voice my opinions very strongly.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Time for two more questions. So I
Right.
wanted to now ask you a question on the future of work, especially given the amazing flexibility in terms of the working models, remote working, hybrid working, work from home, and so many other things are happening. Technology is coming in. How do you see the future of work in our country?
First of all, we are following the US
Correct.
in terms of work practices, no secret. If you look at various domains of study in modern life, it is generated from,
Hmm.
and if you see the way India is embracing technology,
Hmm.
maybe because of our younger demographic,
Yeah.
or maybe because it helps us to cut costs, cut time, etc. So we are all very gung-ho about it.
Hmm.
And in the last large percentage of GCC which have come into the country,
Hmm.
that's also contributing big time. So, and of course, all the outsourcing. So, obviously, there is hybrid, I guess. And here is where I connect to your previous question on women in at the workplace.
Hmm.
See, we are in a, because of mass scale disruptions. Obviously, there is a tremendous talent shortage,
Hmm.
and this is where women may get a better opportunity. The combination of talent plus, remote working opportunity. You just might find more women getting recruited. Not because anyone has taken it as a good thing to do, but because there is nobody else
Right.
available in the
Right.
market.
Right.
So it can be, blessing in disguise for Indian women. So remote work, yeah. Definitely.
Okay. Well said. And my last question to you.
Am I going too fast?
No, you're not. Well, we're absolutely as per our time schedule.
Okay.
My last question to you. How do you see the role of human resources evolving in the next few years?
Right. So, like all disciplines, there's going to be a hollowing out of the human resource function,
Hmm.
hollowing out of human beings from the equation. Definitely, but still, there will be human beings at work.
Hmm.
And for that, you need HR definitely.
Hmm.
And concerns, I mean, we get carried away by fads and fashions.
Hmm.
Fads and fashions, even in, best practices. Some consultant will come with some new terminology. Everybody goes gung ho on it, and then after a little while, it shifts to.
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, they're professionals and all professionals. I think the fundamentals are that you need talent.
Hmm.
Talent is what's going to make the company.
Right.
And what is the uniqueness? I mean, despite AI and everything, a certain level of creativity,
Mm.
certain level of problem solving, certain level of decision making, I think is uniquely human.
Mm.
And I don't think AI has reached that stage or will reach the stage in a hurry
Mm.
because to be able to do all this. And by the way, I'm an avid follower of whatever developments are taking place in AI.
Mm.
And some days I get horrified, some days I get mesmerized, some days I said, oh, nothing to it, it's all hype and marketing because Sam Altman wants to sell his product.
Yes. Yes.
So I don't know really. But yeah, the headcount will reduce, but people surely should realize that if you're dealing with human beings, you have to treat them like you
Mm.
can't treat them like robots.
Mm.
And I tell you, I attended a conference where an online thing during COVID, and I think it was a McKinsey consultant. Horrible terminology, which shocked the heck out of me. Talked about employees in quotes, warm bodies and cold bodies,
Wow.
human beings and robots.
Mm.
My God, you're already there as a one more category along with the
Incredible.
machines.
Yeah.
So the dehumanization which is going to happen
Mm.
because of these tech guys is something which is deeply concerning. Which means all HR people fundamentally and all human, I mean, corporate guys fundamentally have to realize at the end of the day you are, you know, uh, dealing with human beings. That cannot be forgotten.
Right.
And whatever happening in Karnataka, Bangalore is shocking. Narayan Murthy, great man, talked about 70 hours work week. You could do it because it was your firm then. Why should a young guy coming in or everybody coming in work 70 hours for you? Are you paying them like that?
Yeah.
Are you giving them ESOPs? What are you doing for them? Why? How can you expect 70 hours? And now Karnataka government has jumped in and passed some,
Mm.
legislation. And do you know one more point I want to make? And this is from my personal
Mm.
experience. Sitting down for hours at the computer and working has destroyed my health. At
Mm.
least it has destroyed my back.
Mm.
And I'm trying to think, and I mean, see my age. And I would have started, regularly sitting at a computer maybe 25, 30 years ago,
Yeah.
right? These kids at the age in the early 20s are going to do that. What's going to happen to them by the time they're in their 40s and 50s?
Mm.
It's horrible.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I agree. But on that note, Asha, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me about your own amazing journey and what took you into the field of human resources. That was such a fascinating story. Thank you for talking to me about the evolution of HR, about women in leadership roles, about technology, about the role of HR, about diversity and inclusion, about the future of work, and of course, your last few points on how important it is for human beings to not get dehumanized in the world that we are living in. Thank you for speaking to me and good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care, Ashutosh.
Thank you.
In an honor.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.